Have you ever found yourself wondering, is this still normal? Maybe something feels different, slower, less responsive, or just not as fulfilling as it used to be. You're not alone. Whether it's frustration, confusion, or even a little embarrassment, it's perfectly natural to feel like you're navigating uncharted territory when it comes to intimacy later in life. Now, let's be real for a moment. Just because we're getting older doesn't mean we stop being human. And that includes everything from holding hands to deep emotional connection, to yes, a healthy sex life. Yet, for so many people over 70, sex becomes a topic they either stop talking about, or quietly accept as over. But let me tell you something, doctors say it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, ignoring certain changes can actually create more problems than simply talking about them. So, in this video, we're going to talk openly, without shame, and with some eye-opening honesty about 6 common mistakes seniors make when it comes to sex, and more importantly, what your doctor wants you to know so you can feel confident, connected, and yes, even excited again. Let's start with something that may surprise you. It's something that affects both men and women, and it's one of the most common things doctors see behind closed doors, but almost no one talks about it. I'm talking about assuming low libido is just part of aging. Now, yes, your hormones shift as you get older. That's no secret. But here's the thing, desire doesn't vanish just because you've had another birthday. What actually happens for a lot of people is that other factors, like medication side effects, lack of physical activity, sleep troubles, or emotional disconnect imitate low libido. You might feel less interested simply because your body is tired or achy. Maybe you're not sleeping well, or maybe you're dealing with chronic stress, which is a sneaky thief of pleasure. For women, vaginal dryness due to lower estrogen can make intimacy uncomfortable, so the brain starts associating sex with pain, not pleasure. For men, heart disease or diabetes can mess with circulation, and yes, that can affect performance, but that doesn't mean the desire is gone. So what do doctors say? Don't brush it off. Instead, talk about it. Whether that's with your partner, your physician, or even a therapist, the first step is realizing that losing desire isn't inevitable, it's often a symptom of something fixable. And let me tell you, there is nothing more empowering than learning that what you thought was just aging might actually be reversible. Now, that brings us right into the next mistake, failing to adapt to a changing body. I want you to think about this. When you were 30, did you expect your body to act the same way it did when you were 18? Of course not. So why would you expect your 70-something body to behave like it did in your 50s? Sex in your 70s and beyond is different, but different doesn't mean worse. It just means something different. The truth is, your body might take a little longer to warm up. You might need more time, more touch, more communication, and there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, many couples find that intimacy deepens when they slow things down and really tune into each other. The problem comes when we resist those changes. When we try to force things the way they used to be, we can end up feeling frustrated, disconnected, or even hurt. I've had people tell me they thought they were broken because they couldn't perform the same way anymore. But guess what? You're not broken. You're evolving. Doctors actually recommend thinking of intimacy in broader terms: touch, closeness, emotional connection, sensuality, not just intercourse. For women, using lubricants or vaginal moisturizers can make a huge difference. For men, there are more treatment options than ever for things like erectile dysfunction, many of which don't involve pills at all. But none of those solutions can help if you never ask. This leads me to something I see far too often, and it can be heartbreaking. It's when someone feels so ashamed or embarrassed about changes in their sexual health that they just stop trying. They stop talking to their partner, they stop exploring, and little by little, the distance grows. That's not just a physical problem, it becomes an emotional one, too. Which is why understanding your body and accepting its changes isn't about settling for less. It's about finding new ways to feel close, to feel desired, and to express love. And while we're on the subject of understanding your body, let's talk about a third mistake that often goes unnoticed until it becomes a real issue: ignoring the impact of medication. Now, I know many of us are on more medications than we'd like. Blood pressure pills, antidepressants, diabetes meds, they all help keep us healthy, but here's the twist: they can also quietly mess with your sex life. Some lower testosterone or estrogen. Others affect blood flow. And some, especially certain antidepressants, can dull sexual response so gradually that you don't even connect the dots. Doctors say this is one of the most overlooked causes of sexual issues in older adults, and the good news is, in many cases, it's fixable. You just have to bring it up. You'd be amazed how many people suffer in silence simply because they're too shy to ask if there's an alternative or adjustment. Let me reassure you, your doctor has heard it all before. And they'd much rather help you find a solution than let you sit there thinking your spark is gone forever. Here's something you can do right away: make a list of your medications, including over-the-counter ones, and bring it to your next appointment. Ask your doctor if any of them might be affecting your libido, stamina, or comfort. If the answer is yes, there may be another option or a better time of day to take them. And if not, at least you'll have ruled that out. It's about taking charge. Because your health, your happiness, and yes, your sex life matter. No matter your age. Now that we've covered how desire, body changes, and medications can quietly interfere with intimacy, let's keep going, because the next mistake is one that many people don't even realize they're making until it's caused real strain, not just in the bedroom, but in their relationship as a whole. It's the mistake of not talking openly with your partner about what you want or don't want. Let's face it, communication around sex can be tricky at any age. Maybe you were raised in a time when it just wasn't something people talked about. Maybe you've been with your partner for decades and feel like you should already know what each other likes. Or maybe you're dating again after a loss or a divorce, and it just feels awkward bringing it up. But here's the truth: good sex starts with good communication. If something doesn't feel good, or if something feels missing, saying nothing won't make it better. And yet so many seniors stay silent because they don't want to hurt their partner's feelings, or they think, well, it's too late to change now. But it's never too late. In fact, this stage of life can be the perfect time to rediscover each other or to define what intimacy looks like for you now. Doctors often say that couples who talk openly about their needs, even the uncomfortable stuff, are not only more satisfied sexually, they're more connected emotionally, too. So how do you start the conversation if it feels awkward? Start small. You don't have to make it a big, dramatic sit-down. Maybe it's a gentle moment during a walk, or lying in bed holding hands. Try something like, "I've been thinking about how things have changed for us, and I want us to keep feeling close. Can we talk about what we both enjoy lately?" Notice how that's not about pointing fingers. It's about sharing. And once the door is open, you might be surprised how much closer it brings you. Your partner might be relieved you brought it up. They might even have their own worries or thoughts they've been keeping inside. And if you're single, this is just as important. Dating over 70 comes with a new set of dynamics, and being clear about your comfort zones, desires, and boundaries is essential, not just for safety, but for your own emotional well-being. You're not a teenager anymore, and that's a good thing. You know yourself better than ever. Use that. Which leads us to something that's becoming more common than people might think: seniors who are dating again but forget that sexual health includes sexual safety. Yes, I'm talking about STIs. It might sound surprising, but rates of sexually transmitted infections among older adults have been rising. Why? Well, part of it is that many seniors don't think they're at risk anymore. After all, pregnancy isn't a concern, right? But diseases like chlamydia, syphilis, and even HIV don't care how old you are. And since many symptoms go unnoticed or are mistaken for normal aging, these infections can go undiagnosed for years. Doctors say this is one of the most overlooked dangers among sexually active seniors. And it's not about judgment, it's about staying healthy. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be scared of dating or intimacy. It just means being smart. If you're starting a new relationship, or have multiple partners, it's perfectly reasonable to ask about testing. And yes, using protection like condoms still matters, even in your 70s. This isn't about being paranoid. It's about valuing your health and your future. And listen, if you've never had to have that kind of talk before, I get it, it might feel uncomfortable. But remember, protecting yourself isn't just smart, it's a sign of self-respect. And honestly, anyone worth being intimate with will respect you even more for it. There's one more thing I want to touch on here, and it's deeply personal for many people. It's the feeling that your body is no longer desirable. And that belief can quietly kill intimacy faster than almost anything else. We live in a culture that worships youth, doesn't it? We see ads full of wrinkle-free, magazine-perfect bodies, and it's easy to internalize the idea that aging equals unattractive. But let me ask you something, how much of your attraction to someone is really about their looks? And how much of it is about their warmth, their touch, their laughter, their kindness? Desire is not reserved for the young. It lives in confidence, in trust, in emotional connection. And yes, in the comfort of knowing and accepting your own body. Doctors often see patients who've stopped pursuing intimacy not because they physically can't, but because they're ashamed of how they look. Sagging skin, a belly that wasn't there before, stretch marks, scars from surgery, these are all normal. They're signs of life. Of stories. Of surviving. But if you've been taught to hide your body, or to apologize for it, it's time to challenge that narrative. One step at a time. Start with the mirror. You don't have to love everything you see, but try to look with kindness. Instead of focusing on what's changed, notice what's still beautiful. Your smile. Your eyes. The way you hold yourself. You deserve to feel wanted. To be touched. To be cherished. And if you're with a partner, remember this, they probably have the same insecurities. Sharing those feelings openly can actually bring you closer. You can be each other's biggest comfort, not just emotionally, but physically. Intimacy doesn't start with perfection. It starts with presence. With showing up as you are, and being willing to connect anyway. So let go of the myths. The outdated beliefs. The silent suffering. Because whether you're 70, 80, or 90, you are not past your prime when it comes to love, touch, or pleasure. Now, let's keep this conversation going, because there's one more area we have to talk about, because if we're talking about keeping intimacy alive and meaningful well into your 70s, 80s, and beyond, there's one last mistake that quietly affects so many people, and most don't even realize it's happening. It's the belief that sex has to look the same as it did decades ago, or it doesn't count. This mindset is sneaky. It tells you that if things don't work like they used to, it's not worth trying. That if the mechanics have changed, if arousal takes longer, or erections aren't as firm, or orgasms feel different, then maybe intimacy is no longer real or valid. But I want to gently challenge that idea. Because it's simply not true. Doctors, and I mean the ones who work every day with aging adults, will tell you this over and over. The definition of a healthy sex life changes as you change. And holding on to some rigid idea of what sex is supposed to be. That's one of the biggest obstacles to enjoying it fully, right now. Let me put it this way, if you're holding a beautifully aged wine, do you judge it by the same taste as it had the day it was bottled? Of course not. You appreciate it for how it's matured. How its richness has deepened. Intimacy in your later years is no different. It can be deeper. More emotionally connected. Less about performance, and more about experience. But to get there, you have to let go of the script. You know the one, touch leads to this, which leads to that, and then that happens, and it all ends with a certain result. That script might have worked fine when you were 30. But now, it might be causing unnecessary pressure and disappointment. The truth is, many couples over 70 find that expanding their idea of what counts as sex can actually rekindle passion and connection in a whole new way. Think about it, holding each other, skin on skin, a long sensual massage, shared laughter in bed, kissing with intention, these aren't just preludes. They are intimacy. And for some, intercourse may no longer be part of the picture at all due to surgery, illness, or physical limitations. That doesn't mean sex is over. It means the definition evolves. It becomes about closeness, connection, warmth, comfort. And when that pressure lifts, when you're not chasing some old version of what sex was supposed to be, you create room for what it can be now. Doctors also stress how important it is to approach intimacy without judgment or self-criticism. Performance anxiety doesn't disappear with age, it just takes on new forms. But the more we stay curious, flexible, and open, the more we discover what actually works for us now. And what works might be even better than what used to. Now, before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to pull back and look at the bigger picture. Because everything we've talked about, desire, communication, body changes, medication, sexual safety, and redefining what sex means, it all comes down to one central truth: you still matter. Your pleasure, your comfort, your connection, it all matters. You're not invisible. You're not past it. You're not supposed to quietly fade into the background. This stage of life is just as worthy of joy, of touch, of desire, and of intimacy as any other. And the good news is, more and more seniors are refusing to settle. They're asking the right questions. They're seeking support. They're learning, unlearning, and reconnecting with themselves and with their partners. You can be one of them. Maybe that means booking an appointment and having a frank conversation with your doctor. Maybe it means sitting down with your partner and saying, "I want us to grow closer again." Maybe it means looking in the mirror and choosing kindness over criticism. Or maybe it's as simple as giving yourself permission to want again. To hope. To explore. To feel. Because this isn't about chasing youth. It's about embracing who you are now, with honesty, confidence, and a whole lot of heart. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few thoughts, not as instructions, but as invitations. Ask yourself, what would it feel like to reconnect with your body, not as something to fix, but something to cherish? What would it feel like to share a quiet, vulnerable moment with someone you love, where the only goal is connection? What would it feel like to let go of expectations and discover pleasure in unexpected places? That's the beauty of this chapter. There's no one right way to do it. No rules. No deadlines. Just you, your wisdom, and the freedom to define intimacy on your own terms. And if you've been watching this and thinking, "This is me. This is what I've needed to hear," then let this be your sign. You're not alone. And there is so much still ahead. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What resonated with you most? What's something you've learned or want to try? Let's make this a space where people over 70 can talk honestly about what real connection looks like. No shame. No filters. Just the truth. If you found this video helpful, inspiring, or just reassuring, please take a moment to click that like button. It helps more people find this kind of content. And if you want more warm, real conversations about health, relationships, and aging with purpose, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We've got so much more to share. Here's to living fully, loving deeply, and embracing every part of who we are at every age. You deserve it.